What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. But John does go back in 1590, as you said. Yeah. So now that the Spanish Armada, that stuff's done.
Yeah.
He has his charter. He goes back to the colony again. His daughter, Eleanor, was her name?
Eleanor, yeah.
Eleanor's there. And he's expecting to find, 120, 140 people, whatever it was.
Right.
And what happens when he goes back?
So he goes back and he finds nothing. There's no sign of them.
No sign of life.
It's very, very interesting. He talks about the houses all being taken down. Now, these houses were built out of wattle and daub, and I can kind of cover a little bit about that. Wattle and daub. I can explain that a little bit on one of the other slides about how they, what they would have lived in and what they would have had. But basically, he goes back and he finds, and this is his words. He says, "We found the houses taken down, and the place," and this is a punchline, "and the place very strongly enclosed with a high palisade of great trees with courtines and flankers, very fort-like. And one of the chief trees or posts on the right side of the entrance had the bark taken off, and 5 foot from the ground, in fair capital letters, was graven or engraved, Croatoan, without any cross or sign of distress." Now, that's a really important passage. And let me run that through, run that by you again. So he gets back to Roanoke, no sign of the colonists. He goes to where the houses were, and he says, and he notes that we found the houses taken down. So that's not burnt to the ground, that's systematically dismantled. Now, these houses of wattle and daub, it's kind of like a way you can make it. It's like a prefab house. That's the easiest way for me to describe it. You could take these things apart, almost modular panels, and put them back up again.
Is it wood?
Okay. Usually, it's basically like hazel twigs or something like that. The daub is made out of crushed seashells and lime and what have you to make it, and then you use like thatching, like reeds on top.
What's this called again, Alessi? Let's see if we can pull this out.
Wattle and daub. It's Wattle, and the word daub is Daub. So wattle and daub.
Wattle and daub.
Yeah.
Such a British sounding name once again. Very classy. Wattle and daub.
Wattle and daub.
Yeah.
So let's see what you can find. There we go. Wattle and daub.
Okay, images. Oh,
so these look very fancy, but I would draw your attention to the more basic ones that show how it was actually made. But you can see these very simple houses on the you see on the right hand side there. Those top first, especially that first couple of images there. That's very typical of the sort of thing that would have been produced. Now, this one is actually in Mississippi, as you can see there. It says Mississippi period house. But it's not that dissimilar from the kind of place that they would have built.
Can you click the one, Alessi, down at the bottom middle, the orange one? Yeah. Do that one. That's fine. Is that like plywood there on that? I guess that's like a new one.
You would probably use pieces of tree to form like a gate, doorway, like you have a lintel over a doorway to stop the roof from collapsing in and so on.
So it's essentially, you could basically lift the roof off the way it's built, and then you could take each of the side panels and push them down to the ground.
The roof is reeds, so you just gather up the reeds and untie them all, because they would just be in by
falls
stage.
like a cardboard box.
It's a flat
almost.
pack.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, maybe my photographic memories misremembering some of this right now. I feel like, you ever seen the movie The Patriot?
Yeah.
So the part, like almost a couple hours into that movie, where they take a break from the war and they go to that island, I believe off South Carolina, like the shores where all the former slave population are living. I feel like they had houses.
It's a very
that look
rudimentary
like that.
house, but it's dry, and that ultimately is what you build. It's a very simple construction.
So they're gone when they get there.
They're gone. He says they're taken down. They're not burnt down. They're not scattered all over the place like they've been ransacked or whatever.
So there's just no
systematically taken down, right? In its place, he says a very strongly a place very strongly enclosed with a high palisade. Remember palisade,
yes.
wooden defence foe. With courtines and flankers. Courtines and flankers, if you can imagine in a castle, you have the turrets, etc., with the slots where you can fire your bow and arrows out of and all that. I think Robin of Sherwood kind of thing. Courtines and flankers are how you can protect the sides of your fort. So someone's trying to climb over the wall, you can look out the tower and you can see down the side of the wall. So it's a military defence, a way of defending a proper, your castle, because you can shoot down the side because you're out in the tower that sticks out a little bit, and you can look down and shoot people. So courtines and flankers are military terms for designs of a fort that enables you to repel people who are attacking the walls of the fort.
Huh.
Okay, so if you were to look at a typical English castle, you have the round turrets on the corners. So you have the shape with the turrets on the corner. Well, if you're in that turret, you can see straight down the side of the wall.
Right.
And so anyone trying to climb that wall, you can shoot at them from that turret.
Right.
That's where we're talking courtines and flankers. That's the old terminology for having that kind of defensive structure. So he talks about them having built a very strong palisade of great trees with courtines and flankers, very fort-like, quote unquote.
So if I'm following this, the way he's interpreting the situation right now is that when he left, they had these, what was it, Wattle and Daub?
Yeah.
They had these Wattle and Daub houses. They've been taken down, meaning there's like no evidence they were there, but there's not scattered burn marks or anything like that. So they're taken down, and now it's been replaced with a fort-like structure, and there's no one in it.
No one in it. Now, one of the posts to this fort, 5 foot from the ground, in capital letters, is written Croatoan, the word Croatoan. And he says, without any cross or sign of distress. Now, that last bit is because he records in 1587 that he'd left them with a way to kind of give him a message, leave a message behind if he got back and found they'd moved. He said, tell us where you've gone, and if you had to leave in a hurry, put a cross underneath the word so that we know that cross said you had to leave in a hurry. But he says the word Croatoan was written without any sign of distress. So how you can interpret that, I think, is fairly straightforward. They were living there for a while. The Indians from the mainland started attacking again. The same people, the military colony, kind of got, annoyed a bit. So they built a fort to protect themselves, and then at some point decided that they were going to dismantle the houses and relocate. And so they left the fort. They put the word Croatoan on the post without the distress symbol, to say that we had an orderly retreat, if you like, and we moved somewhere. And where we moved is Croatoan, which is the name of Hatteras Island.
This is some Percy Fawcett-like shit.
So basically in 1590, and then John White says, I know that they went to Hatteras Island. I know they went to Croatoan because they've told me that, and they've told me they did that without distress.
Can we pull that up, Hatteras Island, on the map? Let's just see where that bad boy's at.
So scroll down a bit. There, I see that triangular area.
Yes.
That's Hatteras Island there. So they went there. They knew that island.
So he's saying that according to what he found here, and they say Croatoan, that means that he determined that they went to Hatteras Island.
Yeah. Now, I have some reservations in terms of I don't believe they all went to Hatteras Island. And I have a reason for that.
Well, did he sail there right after this to go find him, and they weren't there?
Well, he tried to, but it looks like they were struck by another hurricane. And when the hurricanes are coming up that coast, in a sailing vessel, you can't sail against a hurricane.
Oh,
yeah. So they give up and they go back to England.
So he never even went to try to find Hatteras Island?
Because they couldn't sail there because of the storms. Now,
but he couldn't set up camp and wait a week?
Well, this is what you've got to bear in mind. The people we're dealing with now are not Walter Raleigh and Richard Grenville. We're dealing with people who've bought the charter, who at that time have no investment in the people on that island. They're new people. There's new owners. They're not, the captain of the ship They lose several guys, actually, in the process of trying
But White's with them.
Yeah.
And White does have skin in the game to this.
But he actually, and again, it's documented, it's his words, he laments the fact that he said, in the end, he basically says, I persuaded them that we would go to the West Indies, the Caribbean, and overwinter there and repair the ship and make good and then make another attempt to get back to Roanoke. He actually believes that that's what they've agreed to. What happens is they don't sail back to Roanoke. They go to the Caribbean and then head back to England. So White is basically been lied to. And so he comes back to England.
And again, his daughter's in the middle of this.
His daughter's in that.
So, all right. So they go back to England, and the takeaway from that trip is they found nothing at Roanoke. They believe they could have been at Hatteras. They didn't check Hatteras.
Yeah.
They go to the Caribbean. He gets lied to. Now they're back in England.
Yeah.
And White, this is when White writes down the record of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does he make another trip back?
No. He writes a covering letter with his report from 1590. He writes it to Richard Hakluyt, and he sends with it a covering letter. And that covering letter, again, it's documentary. It's in Hakluyt, and it basically says, I feel awkward because I convinced some people to go. So there's your evidence that an investor in a colony or someone associated with the colony was convincing people to sign up to go to be the part of the colony. And he's also lamenting the fact that he has left his daughter and grandchild abandoned on Roanoke Island.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.